we have Adam Bielby, who's the 2018 National Trigger Punching Championships runner-up, which is a very prestigious title. So we've just finished a bunch of QREs. Adam and Astin shot most of them. Maddie and I shot some. We're going to talk through a few different topics today, but before we start, did Astin or Adam want to talk about the last couple of days?
The last shoot of the year.
So the period between Christmas and New Year, we always sit there and think we're bored as hell, so why not shoot some arrows? And we'll invite some people to come and do it with us. So it does give people the chance to try and climb the ranking list, shoot qualifying scores, etc. We had some pretty hot days. We've been pretty lucky with the wind. I think some people have shot some decent scores. Everyone seems to have had fun.
What was the format?
So we were running a 720 round each morning, followed by a field round in the afternoon. The field round didn't have the greatest participation numbers, mainly due to the heat. And we also did have 2 days of a single clout just for the Victorian juniors that are chasing qualifying scores for the state team selection.
Astin, do you want to add?
Yeah, so it was a variety of conditions. Most of the mornings were pretty good. We had to start really early one of the days because it was over 40 degrees Celsius. So we had a 7 a.m. start for that. But
35 by 10 o'clock when we finished shooting.
Yeah. So, but yeah, especially through the field, it was very hot on some of the days. So over 35 for most of the days we were here. But and then today we finished off with a nice cool day and looking forward to New Year's.
So in the new year, we have the Indoor World Series in Sydney, which is the first time Australia's held an international shoot in a while. So that's
Since
a good one.
2006, I think.
Yes.
World Field, I think was the last one.
You said it convincingly enough. You've got
Yeah.
me. I'm not going to argue.
World Field in
I'm
Canberra,
sure I've
whenever
seen
that was.
signs that say the same.
Yeah. I was 10 at the time, so I don't recall that event, but I will trust you. So that's part of the Indoor World Series, and that's being held up in Sydney. Is everyone here, besides Richard, shooting that one?
No, I'm not.
So
I traditionally don't do too well at indoor. I have some aiming issues that I need to work through.
Trigger punching.
Indoor is a game that requires extremely good aiming skills. And especially being right in the middle of outdoor season, especially this year, I just didn't feel that it was worth it for me, the way I'm shooting and where I'm at the moment.
Fair enough. And what, so Astin, myself and Maddie are all going, so we're all shooting recurve. Astin, what arrow setup are you using for Indoor Worlds?
So up until about 2 days ago, I was just running with my standard outdoor setup, but I managed to cobble together an RX-7 setup, Easton's new indoor arrows for recurve. So, but
And using special points, I believe.
Yeah. So I had a bit of trouble getting some proper points. So I've got some screw-in points that I've managed to make work, and I'm using the nocks that are the wrong size, but I've pinched them together, and they seem to be working pretty well. So
when you say pinched, you physically pinched
as
the
in
knock
I
through?
squeezed the knock and made it smaller.
Did you use your fingers or your teeth?
My fingers.
Fingers?
Fingers, yeah.
So you're a
fingers,
fingers man rather than a teeth man for your
for
knocks.
pinching
I'm
knocks,
a
yeah.
teeth man for
Yeah.
knock pinching.
Yeah, I find they leave bite marks. So.
Yeah, but that's less drag in the arrow. You cut down the weight. It's more aerodynamic.
It's the same with the golf
No,
ball.
I
Has
think
sort of
it-
ripples. It goes fast through the air.
Yeah. ripple,
Did you
ripple
Speed
knock.
calibrate
grooves, yeah.
each pinch, making sure every
No,
pinch is equal?
no,
Ah,
not at all.
nice.
He is quite experienced with his fingers, though, so it shouldn't be too much of an
All
issue.
right.
Moving on. Maddie, what arrow setup are you using for Indoor Worlds?
Tossing up between my carbon ones or the black ones with 4 digits and are 3 inches too long. I don't know exactly what they are, but they seem to fly okay.
Those 32-15s.
Something you found in the back of the quiver.
Oh, something in the back of Alec's shirt.
In Alex stash.
Yeah. I've shot better scores with the carbon ones, but I'm so used to shooting fat arrows with compound that I almost think, what if I was to miss out on just hitting that line, having the bigger shaft? So,
Do you notice any difference in your higher scores shooting just with compound with the thinner arrows versus the fat arrows?
to be honest, I actually can't recall any scores shooting thin arrows for indoor with compound.
Yeah, okay.
I think I've only ever shot fat arrows.
Because I was just thinking for myself, I'm 99% sure my indoor 30 arrow PB is with X10s, which is a 27X.
With X10s.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Is that just because you're more comfortable with them?
I think it was just one of those nights where you can't miss even if you try.
I don't have those.
I think the biggest
I've had
thing.
one.
Richard shoots longbow.
I think the biggest thing is just having more weight on the arrow too to slow it down and control at that shorter distance compared to the thinner ones. So I feel like I will end up shooting the fat arrows the indoor just for that reason.
Well, on that note, I'm shooting RX7s. So I shot X23s beforehand and now switched to RX7s. I've also pinch tuned my nocks because I got sent size 2s instead of size 1s. So they've been teeth tuned. So I've got whatever the stiffest spine RX7 is, I think 420, I think.
About there, yeah.
Yeah, so I shoot a 380 X10, so I'm on a 420 RX7, which spined pretty well the same as my X10, with 4-inch feathers, biter nocks, and whatever their standard not field point, they're Astins, glue in Astin point.
So you're shooting the size 23s, which is the stiffest.
Yep. So I don't know about you, Astin, but I've shot with X10s or skinny arrows indoor, and I found I've shot really well, but I get like a 10-point swing. I could shoot a high 290 or a high 280, whereas when I shoot my X23s, now RX7s, I'm usually always within a 5-point kind of range.
Yeah. So I found similar. So when I was training for the Indoor Worlds a couple of years ago, I did a fair bit of testing between X10s and X23s to find the difference there, and I found that the X23s were a bit more forgiving at indoors, and you could sometimes get away with those line cutters that might be just out on with the X10s, and you could have a bit less variance in your scores.
And would you run a straight feather or a helical feather?
I've been running a bit of helical, so try to get a bit of spin on there, but try to slow it down with I did find that the 4-inch feathers worked a lot better for me than trying to get veins working. My indoor arrows tune very close to the riser, so I need the clearance issues so I was getting clearance issues with the veins, and definitely ran with the feathers.
And would you use glue or feather tape?
I use tape on the feathers.
Yep.
I found it's so much easier to apply. You're getting a consistent application of weight there. You're not going to get the any variance that you do with glue.
Richard, being a traditional archer, would fix a lot of feathers.
I do.
And you use feather tape now as well.
I do. I did start with glue like everyone, but I switched to feather tape because doing the amount of arrows I needed to, it was quicker. And the biggest plus side was you could just peel it back off the feather and use the feather again instead of having glue drops all over it. So it was reusable feathers. So they save you money in the long run, and they're just easy to fix on the go. So big plus for feather tape.
Bearpaw feather tape in stock at Eliza Archery. There's our plug of the episode. And for those worried about it coming off at higher speeds, that's what I've done with my compound arrows too. So all my compound arrows have feather tape on it. For anyone who's ever fletched spin wings, it's like that, but even easier. So if you're still using glue, don't use feather tape because it's so much easier. So for Indoor World Series, do we have any predictions based off the entries we've seen thus far? Anything you want to talk about there?
Well, something that's interesting from the recurve male side is that everyone from Australia who is going for Olympic selection is attending this event. So it'll be a good side event for the recurve men to see how we go against each other. It's very heavy in all divisions, it's very heavy local entry dominated. So over half of the entries in every division are from Australia. It'd be nice to see to have seen some more entries from internationals, but I think the smoke situation in Sydney has kept people away. Yeah. So.
Are you guys looking at the entries now?
Yeah, I've not seen the list.
I'm just Facebooking business.
Richard's playing Doodle Jump.
Candy Crush.
Yeah.
I did see one big, for the compound, there is Paige coming from America and the other male compounder.
Tate?
Yeah.
Well, they were recently just in far north Queensland hunting buffalo.
Oh.
So.
Yeah. We've got a few fly-ins from the US. We've got a few from throughout Asia. And the Indian sort of area of Asia as well. A couple of Europeans, not too many.
It is probably one of the cheaper shoots if you are based in Asia to get to.
Yeah.
Having it here. Although, we haven't got as many as I thought.
It's a shame about the conflict with the ATA dates.
Yeah, and I think also in not a pre-Olympic year, in the start of an Olympic year, when a lot of countries are actually having their, countries that would traditionally shoot a lot of indoor, telling your archers don't shoot indoor, focus on outdoor. Yeah. So I think having it now has cut down a lot of it too.
Definitely on the recurve side of it. I think that the low, not so much low entry numbers for compound, but the lack of the names that everybody's used to seeing is probably affected by the ATA show in America.
Yep.
A lot of those archers are contracted to attend that one.
Yeah. I think if they held it 2022 as well, from a recurve perspective, that's when everyone's kind of had their year off. They're coming back into training, but they're not full in outdoor mode yet as well. But hopefully it does run well and we get some more shoots. We don't have to go halfway across the world to shoot an indoor round. So we've been asked as well to talk about compound versus recurve, which we did touch on a little bit last podcast. But this is more kind of if there's a reason against why you wouldn't shoot that or why you would stick to one or the other. So Richard shot pretty much every kind of bow there is. I know Adam shot some compound and recurve. Astin shot 3 arrows.
Yeah. So I shot a couple of shots just after a QRE or something with Maddie's bow in Penrith at some point. Maybe it was after a training camp or something.
Yeah.
Tens, I hope.
No, I think I barely hit the target at 20, 30 metres, something like that.
I think it was 5.
No, it was a bit of a distance. Yeah, no. But I also shot 1 or 2 arrows in Alec's shop with one of the bows there.
So Maddie has recently swapped to recurve. So do you want to talk about why you might think there's a reason against it? Because I know traditionally there have been a number of coaches in high-ranking positions that have discouraged shooting compound as a recurve archer and said you have to specifically choose one bow type, one discipline. Do you think that is true? Why would you think that might be a reason against shooting both?
Look at Brady and Toya. And then all of the other top shooters who have converted and...
All the Dutch guys.
Yep.
Most of the Americans.
Yourself who goes between both. I did find at the start, when I went from compound to recurve, my release was very easy to pick up. Holding was much easier as well, especially in the wind. I haven't found any negatives, more just if I go from recurve to compound, I fatigue a bit faster with the compound. I'm not used to it like I was before. Holding the bow up, aiming for a full 72 arrows, I wonder how I'd go with that. But just training in general is perfectly fine, in my opinion. Shooting tournaments with both, fully competing, I don't know if I'm ready for that, but you seem to handle it pretty well. So.
I think as well, when you say reasons against, I think compound versus recurve. I think if you were to say, I'm going to go out and shoot 50 hours in my compound, or I'm going to sit on my butt and watch Netflix for half an hour, I think you're going to get more benefit from shooting the compound. Yeah, so I think if it comes in the way of your recurve training or vice versa, there comes a line there. But I think as an archer how much you should be training with both.
And if you are going to train with both, make sure you're using correct form with both. There's no point as a compound archer picking up a recurve and just shooting arrows wrong. So if you are going to do it, make sure you are doing it correctly.
I think it's as well something to keep your interest going. So I mean, if you're getting tired of just shooting recurve over and over and over and over again, and you might just need a break for a day or two, and just to give yourself a little mental
bring back the enjoyment.
Yeah, exactly, and then go back to your regular training.
And the same can be said for shooting field and indoor and all this other stuff too. I mean, like Maddie said, look at Brady, all the Dutch guys, all the American guys, they're all shooting everything. And I think as well, like you could have more issues training with compound or recurve and doing the wrong training. Like I know a lot of recurve archers will train at blank butt, shooting at a target, a couple meters in front of them with their bow aiming down at the ground or flat, and then they have to go out to 70 and train, and your target's higher up, so you're training your body in a different position. I think if there's ever going to be any issue with training, like where you train and it might be something that negatively kind of impacts your performance, it's going to be training poorly with your bow type, not shooting another type. So there's really nothing. Yeah, there's not really any cases where someone's gone to compound or gone to recurve and it's completely stuffed up their other bow type. There's only really success stories and pretty good ones.
I'd say maybe if you have a competition that's important, don't do it within a week of that, maybe.
Yeah.
The only thing that you could pick up is just punching a trigger with a compound, because it's so easy to pick up, and I'm guilty of it still. And I guess I can transfer over to recurve with plucking. And that anticipation, hearing the click of your clicker. But I think it's good to shoot a compound with that tension if you have got a problem with plucking, to try and get out of a habit in that way.
Yeah,
maybe.
Which goes back to what Adam said, is if you're going to do it, shoot it properly as well. I mean, today, so we had a 720, so I shot the 720 this morning with recurve, and then shot the field with compound. And it probably, recurve to compound doesn't take very long. Like I probably shot 7 or 8 arrows practice before the field round, and that was fine. There's definitely points there if I'd have warmed up more, but as far as getting most of the way there's not much in it. I think compound back to recurve can feel a little weird if you're not used to that transition.
So it's interesting because I noticed it the other way around.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so when I pick the compound up after I've shot recurve for an hour or so, the compound feels really weird at first. It takes me 15, 20 shots to get used to the feeling of that again.
So maybe the transition is just what you're used to rather than...
Yeah. I think probably.
Do you have that,
the biggest thing.
Maddie?
Not anymore, I don't think. When I first picked up a recurve, I was automatically going to compound reference, which was tip of the nose, corner of the mouth, instead of front of the lips or anchoring just in like the front of your face. I was going to the side, and it was tearing my jaw apart. Like, I had the biggest cut against my jaw. I was scratching my neck. I nearly tore my bicep. I was just full compound form going into recurve, and eventually it took me a while to get out of that and be able to swap pretty easily between the two, but now I've picked it up. At the start it was definitely a struggle.
From a different perspective, hunting-wise, and Alec might agree with me here as well because he's done a bit of both. Recurve and compound are both good for strength training hunting-wise, because obviously the compound has more bow mass weight, whereas the recurve has more holding weight. So you sort of train your arm and your back with both sort of disciplines. As I mostly shoot trad, I'm more used to holding more draw weight, but that can also transfer to compound with being able to have lower let-off bows and still feel comfortable using them. Whereas I know most people sort of go for the 75% let-off just because it feels more comfortable. But it's definitely beneficial to try both when hunting. Well, not when hunting per se, but to use them and then go hunt with one, and you'll definitely get benefits out of both of them.
Yeah, and especially like from a strength perspective too. If you're shooting compound, like you said, use the lower holding weight, go to recurve, you use that higher holding weight, and back and forth. It all kind of, I think you develop muscles that are beneficial for shooting, but you might not touch on them completely with one of the bow types. So if you're using both, it can generally work other areas a bit harder. So basically, there's no reason why you shouldn't. Everyone who has done well, so do it. It's good.
That's it.
Yeah, I found that if I am switching between different bow types, mainly like your beginner bare bows and stuff like that, sometimes it can just mess with your mindset when you're shooting a little bit. So you're like anticipating the clicker sort of thing, or waiting for the clicker to go off if you've been shooting bare bow for a while. But I mean, you get over that within a couple of dozen shots. Really, it's a very small negative if there is anything there.
Yeah.
I think most important thing is if you do want to try the other bow, and you don't have any experience with it or any friends that can help you out with it, go see a coach.
Yeah.
Don't just go in blind, because you can only hurt yourself.
Yeah, build the right habits from day one. Yep. So the other thing that we've been asked to talk about is, one, is going to tournaments important as a beginner average archer, and should we have grades for our competition? So maybe if we touch on the first point first, do you guys think that it's important to go shoot competitions?
It depends on what you want out of the sport. If you want to just turn up once a week and just be a social shooter, then there's no reason for you to go to competitions. If you want to challenge yourself and see what you can get out of it and see how good you can get, then yeah, you are going to need to go to tournaments, because you're going to need to test yourself against other people. There's no point in just sitting there and shooting by yourself because you're not going to get as much out of it if you're not challenging yourself against other people.
Even though as a social shooter, there's still no reason not to go to tournaments, because when you go to a tournament, it only needs to be what you make it out to be. So you don't have to go to the tournament saying that I'm going to win this or I'm going to come third. You can go to the tournament and say, I'm going to have some fun, I'm going to shoot some arrows, I'm going to meet some new people. The best place to pick up tips and advice is at a tournament, speaking to the other archers that have been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah, I know lots of people who just go to the tournaments just for the social aspect.
It's good to get used to the crowds as well. If you've got expectations to go higher in the sport, you'll have to get used to people watching you shoot, whereas I, for one, still struggle with people watching me shoot. So going to tournaments early on, getting used to being around a bunch of people shooting will help you with that, whereas I did that too, I just didn't get used to it. So,
well, even some of the top US archers are live streaming Vegas rounds and stuff like that, so people are watching or putting up a photo each end, so there's pressure on them. It's a different, as much as people say, oh, you shouldn't notice, you do notice. It's how you deal with what you notice and how you let that influence your shooting, and that only comes from competition and having those kind of pressures.
Yeah, the more you do it, the more comfortable you are in that situation. It's like if you get to the point where you go to your first international competition, you're going to be nervous as hell, and there's no way that you're going to perform as well as you would back home in your own environment. And it's the first time competing at the national level or the state level. You're not going to be as comfortable there as you are in your own home environment.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to people expecting to feel the same way they feel in practice in a competition, and a lot of the times you don't, especially if you're new to it or it's a big shoot you've been training for. A lot of the times you get there and you start shooting and your shots feel terrible, but they will still kind of find the middle. It's people expect it to feel like it has felt in practice.
It'll take a long time to even get close to that feeling.
Yeah, and the majority of time it doesn't. It's just you having to trust what you've done, which is what comes from going to the competitions, because this might not feel all right, but if I still have my process and my timing, it'll still generally go where I want it. And if you haven't shot competitions, you just get there and go, oh, this doesn't feel very good. Then you lose confidence, your score drops. But if you've done 20 or 30 comps before that, you kind of know. So it's definitely, like you guys said, it depends on why you're going to the comp, but just do it. Yeah.
And like you say about it at the competition, that your shots might feel terrible, but they're still going near the middle. Most of the time when you have an archer that shoots a PB competition, when you ask them, they'll say that they feel that they shot terribly.
Yeah,
it's a recurring thing.
It's the most common response. How did you shoot today? Oh, not that great. I wasn't happy with this end. I wasn't happy with that end.
But it was a PB.
But
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But so everyone always focuses on their their two bad ends, but they completely ignore their 10 good ends.
Yeah.
or even just from a social aspect, like I know I've met some of my best friends from going to competitions and meeting new people, and now it's sort of the only time I get to catch up with the majority of them being interstaters. Like Alec, I met you in my first tournament, and that was going on 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's still putting up with me, so it's definitely good to go to comps and meet some new people.
One of us has a kid now.
But yeah,
Easter egg.
it's not even just the big tournaments either. So just your small local tournaments, your club level tournaments, it helps you. It helps as a stepping stone. If you want to progress further, they're a great place to start. There might only be 6 or 7 entrants in each division or something, but it's putting you in that situation.
And the most common thing people say is, "I'm not ready," but technically no one's ready because no one really shoots a perfect score every time. If you don't shoot a perfect score, well, you're not ready, essentially. So just go and shoot the thing.
And if you don't try, you don't know you're ready. Because I mean, if you've never done it before, you're never going to say you're ready.
Yeah. So even doubt, go shoot it.
That's it.
Much.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you go out there and you lose a match or you score at the bottom of the rankings, so what?
We've all done it.
We've all come
you still
last.
finished ahead of all the people that didn't attend.
Yeah.
I find going to comps better than going to work, so that's an excuse as well.
That's right.
Exactly.
So on the next point, so especially archery in Victoria and in RGBs and nationally, there's generally not a lot of people in each divisions. But it was mentioned, and it's been mentioned before, should we have grades like other sports? Obviously, there's some issues with that. If there's 2 people in a division, and then we then put them in grades, and they've got their own division, and everyone comes away with a medal, is it better to have a mentality of, yes, everyone's a winner, even though there was no one else in the division, or have, it kind of split into, say we only had open compound, and that was everyone, gender regardless, open recurve, and then junior or something like that? Like, what do you think would be a better approach?
As a competitor's point of view, I feel like less divisions would feel nicer when you do win. When you come away with the win, you have a greater sense of achievement.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side of it that you look at it from trying to get the beginners into the sport. Some of them may be put off from going to competition because they know that you've got all these guys that have won national medals and shot overseas that are going to be there, and it can be very intimidating.
Yeah, there's that. But I think people need to take the approach of, you're not going to win every competition that you enter. And you need to get that experience. Those guys or girls who they're looking at and are saying, I don't want to attend, there's no point in me going because this person's going to win. Well, they didn't just turn up and start winning every event. So they just didn't sprout out of nowhere and just win everything. They worked up to that. They've got
to manage your expectations.
Yeah, they went and they went to their state championships and lost, and came 4th or 5th or 10th or whatever their first time, and then they got better each time they attended, and that's what it takes.
Yeah.
We already have grading in FR anyway.
Yeah, maybe.
How else did I come 3rd? I was in grade 8.
But as well, we don't really have the population to be able to split it down any further.
Yeah.
I mean, our biggest tournaments in Australia, we're getting a maximum of like 30 or 40 entrants per division.
Well, the national
divisions,
championship
big
this year was
divisions.
about 170 archers.
All up.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, you look at somewhere like the States. Well, I know they had... I was listening to something on Facebook. I think it's S3DA, like their school's 3D kind of program. And they said, it's pretty small when we started. We only had about 170 people at Nationals. That's a good year for us here.
Yeah.
They said, we've now got about 12 or 1,300 or so. And that's just their juniors shooting 3D.
Yeah.
So somewhere like that, in Australia, it's going to... One, it'll push entry fees up because they've got to buy all these medals and trophies for everyone. Two, it makes presentations go for 2 hours because you've got to go through every single person.
Yeah.
And like Adam said, it just takes the pride out of actually winning it.
Especially if, like, the only one in the division, so you're guaranteed a medal. So you can just, like, shoot bad on purpose or, just chuck it in because you're going to win something.
Yeah, and people will, because it's happened before, will try and put themselves in a division below what they can shoot because they know they'll comfortably win Division 3 or whatever. Yeah. But really, they're good enough to compete in Division 1. They just want to guarantee the medal, which is not really the way to be looking at it. Whereas if you take the approach of going there, if you're trying to be competitive, looking at it long term, B, if you're just trying to go there and have fun, not worrying about the actual medals and stuff at the end. So I think people have got to change their mindset a little bit on what a successful competition actually is.
I think the most important thing to do with competition, I know myself and you guys are probably all the same, but when you do go to a competition, you're not going there to try and win a medal or to win first place. When you go to a competition, you nearly get more enjoyment just out of shooting against yourself and seeing how you can go shoot a PB or get close to a PB or shoot above your average. And if you do that, if you focus on doing everything that you do right, then the result takes care of itself.
Yeah. So I think it's just a mindset shift people have got to have, but ultimately coming away with a medal doesn't mean it was a good or a bad day. It's so much more to it than that. So I think people have to shift their mindset a little bit on that that aspect.
Well, coming back, would less divisions mean more inspiration or more reasons to work harder to be a better archer? Because then you've got to beat that top level person in your division.
If you've got the drive to do that.
That's
yeah. So, I mean, like for our club champs, we had Recurve, Compound, and then we had an under-15 division. That was it. Bebo was in it. No, male Recurve was all combined into the one. And it means you get enough people, it makes it competitive, and there is a bit of sense of achievement there. So I think you can just, we just don't have the numbers to split it. It just doesn't make sense in Australia.
Yeah, losing or missing a medal is not the worst thing that can happen.
No, your bow could blow up.
And if it's a bow tech, it probably will.
Yeah. Shout out to Paul.
But as well, I mean, those top people, they could have a bad day. I mean, I've been at tournaments where the number 1 seed was taken out by the number 8 seed.
Yeah.
It happens.
It's all about how you shoot on the bat.
Yeah, it's as long as you go in with the mindset of I'm going to go in there and I'm going to. It
best.
doesn't matter what the other person does. I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot my best arrows.
World champions can be beaten by people the first time at that competition.
Yeah, especially in match play. It's very,
definitely.
Very much depends on the moment.
And especially in windy conditions.
Well, didn't that recently happen with one of those top recurvers at one of the things? A brand new guy at one of the indoors took out.
There's always, especially in indoors,
everywhere you go.
Because indoors, whilst you might not be shooting 600s indoors,
everyone can shoot a 30.
There's a lot of there's a lot of people that can shoot a 30, and then you string together a few good ends, and
I suppose especially for recurve, that's even more relevant than it is for compound with the set scoring system.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. Miss a target and still come back and win it. So. So the last thing we got asked to talk about was the Australian Archery Community, which was given no other
context.
We're a nice bunch, aren't we?
Oh yeah,
I like to think so.
So there is a definite separation between your 3 camps in the Australian Archery Community with Archery Australia and your World Archery type shooting, and then you've got your 3D and your bow hunters, but then you've also got other smaller groups like your traditionals and your LARPers and stuff, and your role players.
Clout archery.
Your reenactors and stuff.
Yeah.
For the most part, there's not that much interaction between them, and I think it's something that could be better addressed.
Yeah, I do know that all the 3 major divisions do have policies in place to try and encourage cross participation.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to work as well as it could. I know that 3D AAA this year are going to introduce a known distance.
Yeah,
division.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I think that will be huge in trying to get some of the target archers to move across and try that, because there's a lot of archers that are very concerned about not knowing the distance and not being able to gauge the distance accurately enough. So that should encourage a little bit more cross participation. And hopefully on the other side of it is that if we get a few of those archers going across and trying that, there's the potential for some of the archers that mainly shoot 3D to think, well, hey, these guys shoot pretty good. I might go and have a go at that target game and see what I can do there. So it can only grow the whole sport. It definitely can't be a bad thing.
And I think the problem as well is communication at club level too. So especially, I mean, we've seen it even within Archery Australia, like unmarked field, or even just marked field, people saying, oh, I don't want to lose all my arrows. It's like, well, your furthest target's going to be 50 or 60 metres, which you probably shoot already for target. Do you hit the target every time? Pretty much. Well, you're probably not going to lose any arrows.
No.
But at club level, there's still people saying, oh, I'll go out with some cheap arrows. It's like, why?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Same for 3D if there's a known discipline. And a lot of the different like organisations too, you can shoot as non-competitive.
Yeah.
So if you want to go along and shoot a maximum of 30 metres or something so you don't miss while you learn to gauge, you can do that. Like it's just, I don't know, I think a lot of it is just miscommunication at club level of how the different disciplines operate. So just, yeah, I think it comes down if you want to try a different one, regardless if you've got a target bow or a hunting bow or whatever it is, just come along with whatever it is you've got, make it work, and adapt from there if you enjoy it. Like,
yeah, and look, another thing that a lot of people don't think about when they sort of talk about communities and stuff like that is just the sheer size of Australia versus the population density.
Yeah.
So it is a very spread out archery community. Social media sort of joins it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But there's still, in terms of actually catching up with your friends that you've met and run into and stuff like that, it can be, you might see them once or twice a year. Because it certainly gets very costly if you want to attend tournaments throughout the country all year.
Yeah, it's very different to, I guess America's still pretty spread out, but Europe and places like that, you can, jump on a train and be in another country. So,
Yeah, that's right.
Very different for us over here.
It's it's another obstacle. That's what it sort of comes down to.
I think advertising as well is another aspect of that. It's very, I mean, I have no clue about any of the 3D or ABA shoots that are on in the Canberra area where I'm from. I know that we do have, I think it's an ABA club somewhere towards the south of Canberra, but I've got enough. I don't know anything about it. I don't hear anything about it. I don't know when they do shoots, so I've got no involvement with them.
Yeah, it would be good to kind of share that a bit more between the clubs. Even if there was a system where you had, I guess Twin City does it well because you've got Bulla and Twin City on the same grounds.
Or Penrith, with
Penrith.
Hunty and Bow Hunters.
Yep.
Or Manly Field Archers, and then Manly Warringah Archers.
Oh, they're on the same.
They're about 20 minutes from each other.
Oh, okay.
But they do promote each other.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, something like that. If there was a program of kind of sistering up a club, basically, so you've got your partner club that's an ABA or a 3D partnered with your target club, and then together there's, I don't know, reduced membership between the two or something like that. They share the same calendar. Yeah, that's probably the best way, easiest and best way of just going, you guys are close, you're partnered, and politics will get in the way. Someone won't like someone else, but the majority of it will actually work pretty good.
Yeah. Probably one of the biggest obstacles to growing the community in Australia is member retention.
Yeah.
So definitely a high member turnover.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure if that's an issue with the governing bodies or the clubs, or even if it's just people that come think that this is the greatest thing on earth and then get bored of it after 6 weeks.
Yeah, that is a tricky one, member retention. And I guess it's in the same in a lot of sports too as well. Yeah. We're just impatient.
And the other thing is...
we want it all, and we want it now.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
To try and grow the community is having more than one type of shoot on the same day, which I found is a problem. I know it's not always the club's fault, but you have a look at the calendar and there's a 3D shoot on the same day as a QRE somewhere. And then you got to sort of pick which one's your favourite, and then you got to go to that one. Then obviously Target loses some people, 3D will lose some people, and sort of having them on separate days so everyone can go to one shoot and everyone can go to the next shoot. You're sort of losing out between who's actually having an experience with all those shoots.
And nationally, it's hard to coordinate, which is why I think if you had clubs that are close geographically to each other that were partnered up, that then coordinated their calendars. Here's our club shoot on a Saturday, and then our ABA club has their club shoot on a Sunday, so you can go off and shoot both, and it creates that cross kind of participation. And then if you want to go travel interstate or go national from there, then you can start looking for yourself. But until you kind of helped along to start getting into the other side of it, you're not going to go straight away and go, all right, I've never shot 3D, when's the nationals? Cool, let's go. Like, you want to try a few rounds first. So, is there anything you guys wanted to add to that one?
What's interesting you say that is going calendars. I think New South Wales IFAA is the only one really following that, because I remember looking back on their calendar and they'd have all their shoots listed, but then they'd also include New South Wales states, the state field. They'd have World Archery tournaments as well, or AA shoots in there. They'd have the nationals. They'd have our indoor tournaments listed. So they're doing well. If we incorporated that somehow with our calendars, more people would find out about it.
We tend to do that with our club calendar at Twin City as well. So our club calendar will usually include all of the local ABA shoots, all of the local 3D shoots, and obviously all the Victorian World Archery competitions as well. So it's sort of just aimed that our members can see what's on, what's coming up, and decide that they might, okay, well, there's no 3D competitions this weekend, and I really want to shoot, so I might go and have a go at target.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that some clubs are better than others with the integration. I know Diamond Valley has both. Diamond Valley in Victoria has both 3D and
they're another one that does it well.
Target. Yeah.
I did hear something about that the other day that might not be continuing having both, but I'll leave that alone.
I heard that too. Yeah, but there's a lot of clubs already, especially in Victoria, that do it pretty well, and apparently New South Wales too. That kind of cross, can't think of a good word for it.
Cross promote.
That's the one. Yeah, cross promote the different divisions. So I think
not just good at punching triggers.
Well, because 3D AAA, they release the calendar at the start of the year for the whole year for every 3D shoot that's in Australia. So you can plan around that shoot, and then Whereas,
from what I've noticed, I haven't had much involvement with 3D AAA, but from what I can see, it looks like a lot of their shoots are managed at a more central national level than a lot of the other sport associations that managed at the club level. So you have all the clubs report back, and there's no unity, I guess.
Yeah.
3D AAA, most of it is organised and managed by right from the top down. So all the calendars come down from the top, all of the shoots are allocated from the top, and it works very well for being able to have a nationally unified calendar.
Yep. Yeah, they look like they run it always pretty well. All the shoots I've been to, it's always been pretty well run, but relaxed rather than a million different rules. And I do like the way 3D's run compared to Target. It's certainly a more easygoing approach, especially if you're new to the sport.
Yeah, especially the thing that blew me away the couple of times I've had a go of it is you turn up and there's no allocated start time where everybody goes out and starts at the same time. It's people just from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You've got people turning up and setting up and heading out to shoot.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's different.
Yeah. Pick your own groups as well, and yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add to this one before we finish up?
No, I think that's about it. Time for outros.
All right. This is the last podcast of 2019. We'll see you back in 2020.